We're going back to court. The Attorney General has taken 5 months to decide that it's in the public interest to try me again for a 2-year prison sentence. The entire world can see the state persecution. Now, I haven't even gone through everything properly yet. But one thing that's clear. They say that it's in the public interest to recharge me. So people are aware there was a grooming scandal, a grooming case last week at Bradford Crown Court. When the men were convicted and found guilty, the baying mob of Muslim men that were there to witness it, their friends and family, shouted rape threats at the prosecutors, screamed and heckled and told them they need to be raped. They've not been spoken to by the police. That doesn't face prosecution. What faces prosecution in this country, in Britain, let me read you what they're saying is my crime. I cause substantial risk that one or more of the criminal defendants, that's the Muslim rapists who rape children, would be harassed by followers of the respondent, that's me, who had seen the video. Or that the criminal defendants would reasonably apprehend that they might be on their way to court and they might create distraction and anxiety. That's right. I face prosecution for causing anxiety to 10 Muslim men who raped children. I caused them anxiety. That is my charge. I would have seriously impeded their ability to participate properly in the trial that had finished, which for the avoidance of doubt required them to be able to travel to and from court without fear of molestation. They were convicted and found guilty of molestation. What are you talking about? And to be in a state of mind, the worry is about the 10 men that have been found guilty. Do you know what? The Attorney General believes it's in the public interest to try me. Do you know one of those men, when I was arrested on the Friday and put straight automatically in jail without a trial, those 10 men were sent home. One of those men absconded. One of those men has been sentenced to something like 15 years in his absence. He's still not in prison. The Attorney General should concentrate on bringing that rapist, child rapist, to prison. I'll end up being sent to prison twice for giving publicly held information. For those of you reading the charge is that I breached a reporting restriction, section 4. The judge, under their own law, has no power to enforce a reporting restriction on any information that's already in the public domain. This is clear to the world. State persecution. I may face prison again. For what? For holding my iPhone and telling the public information that was already in the public domain. Ask yourself this. What has taken the Attorney General 5 months? What's taken 5 months? They say they made the decision today. Well, that's a lie, because in the paperwork it shows you were making the decision last week at the same time that you removed my social media. So what they want to happen now, there will be court trials. There will be court trials. I'll probably be put back in prison and no one will be able to talk about it. Because right now, due to the censorship, if you share my name on Facebook, they will delete you. You've seen the pressure even today being put on YouTube to remove me. Let's just clear a couple of things up here, which I'll clear up in a more detailed video. The government, the establishment are putting pressure on YouTube to remove me, even though I've broke none of their terms or conditions. They want my voice removed. They removed me from Facebook, from Instagram, and from Twitter. They've lied to the world that I broke their rules, that I incited hatred, that I called for murder. You think I'd be facing a court charge if I did that? The world is watching the lengths the British establishment are going to. Now, this is where it gets even more dark and more sinister. A group of men were sent to my children's home on Sunday afternoon. Although you wouldn't know that if you read any of the media. Because today, Tom Watson stood in the House of Commons and said that I harassed a journalist at his home. He fails to mention the journalist in question, his name Mike Stutchbury, regularly encourages violence on his platform. Punch them, punch them, punch them. That's what his social media says. Oh, it's great. And ship Antifa in from Germany so they can smash their heads. That's another post he said. He openly says he's Antifa. He doxed the address my children live in on Sunday. They say that a criminal letter was delivered to my children's home and my wife's home. They don't mention it was delivered by a crackhead. A crackhead who in the recent days has spoke about putting my children through a guillotine and masturbating whilst my house is burned down with my family in it. They don't say that that same junkie that was sent to my children's home talks about fucking my wife in her eye socket. Of course, Tom Watson doesn't mention any of that harassment aimed at my children. Harassment that's been going on 6 months. Which I can prove, and the next video that I'll have coming out will show you all of this. Harassment that's been encouraged. Mike Stutchbury doxed my children's address. Resisting hate, along with mainstream media, doxed their address. They live streamed. They went on Sunday afternoon to an address that they believed my wife and children were at, and they live streamed it. If my wife hadn't rang the police, her image and that of my children who were playing on the drive would have been broadcast for the world. None of the mainstream media at all have mentioned this. In fact, let me tell you what happened yesterday, which you will see videos of. I am being set up. Yes, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you, okay? I went, as I'm relocating my children, okay, as they've had to be taken out of school, I've gone to the property to help. At the end of the road, I've noticed a Mercedes van. I've pulled up next to the Mercedes van and I've asked, who are you and what are you doing? They said they were builders. You're going to see this video. I videoed it all. I videoed their registration plate. I then get out as they try to drive away and I block the road. And I say, unless they tell me who's in the back of the van and what they're doing, because they certainly weren't builders, they then tell me to turn my camera off. And they ask who I think they are. They then show me a warrant badge. They're police officers. I then say they're not going anywhere until I see in the back of their van. I then take them round as I open the back of their van. The back of their van was an Intel van. A van with recording and listening devices, parked next to the house I was in. The red-haired moron, the racist moron, the resisting hate who work with Hope Not Hate, the racist extremist that was sent to my children's home, who regularly incites racial hatred against black people and the most intolerant sort of stuff you will ever think of being said. He was sent by Mike Stutchbury and others to my children's home. He has continued then to threaten and make comments about my wife and children, as have many others. I'm, as I see this setup, am supposed to make one wrong comment as everything I'm saying is being recorded by monitoring Intel vans surrounding probably everywhere I am. So this was a honey trap. Yeah, I walked into it because I went to Mike Stutchbury's house. I didn't go and beat him up. I didn't go and threaten him. I went to ask him, how do you think it's fair to send a drug addict, racist extremist, and to dox an address with innocent children in? How do you think that's fair? That's why I went to ask him questions. The coward that he is wouldn't come out to one man on his own. He sent 5 men to my children's home. Yet none of the media will report that. In fact, the media were present with them whilst they come to my children's home. I believe now Panorama were present whilst they come to my children's home. Now the next day, probably knowing that I'd react. Do you know why they probably know I'd react? Because I know, and I have evidence of, that Hope Not Hate have been having me followed everywhere. That would include following me to my therapy sessions. Because since being incarcerated for 2.5 months on solitary confinement, I come out of jail visibly, for many of you to see, in not a great place. Diagnosed and suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder. At a time when that's going on, the establishment then was to provoke me into reaction by endangering my children and my wife. And then have listening devices to probably get me, or hope to get me, talking about criminality or wanting revenge. In the same week, I had gentlemen who I've met over the last 12 months offer their services to inflict criminal activities upon the people who'd been to my house. Lucky I'm not a bloody moron and I told them not to. Because that, I believe, was a setup. And I believe the lengths they're now going to. So funny enough, when I find these officers in the back of their Intel van, and you'll see it, they mount the pavement to run away whilst I'm videoing them. You'll see this video coming out. The next day, the Attorney General decides to prosecute me. Panorama didn't work. Your big hit job with John Sweeney, the bigot. That didn't work. Sending crackheads to intimidate my children didn't provoke the reaction you wanted then either. Now, you think you're going to send me back to prison. And you send me back to a prison at a moment when you've took away the ability for anyone to talk about it. Because no one can now go on Facebook and mention Tommy Robinson. I've become such a figure of hate that no one can even mention my name. Even though I broke no laws and committed no crimes. And the Labour Party, the Union, want me banned from public places. Just imagine what this country would be like if the far left Communist Party of Labour got in power. The second in command wants people banned from YouTube because he disagrees with their views. He can't point to one single video I've given that incites any hatred, but he wants me removed. The Union, who are putting Labour in their position, who fund them, want me banned from public places. They would reintroduce gulag camps. That is where we're heading. The censorship levels in this country and the abuse of power, which is what it is. The Attorney General today is abusing his power. The police aren't asking me to stand trial. The Crown Prosecution Service don't want me to stand trial. The government are making me stand trial. The government. Now, I'd say a special thank you. My website's been launched. And guess what? There's been 400,000 attacks on it in the last 2 hours. Some government interference. Now, they want, and it's worrying for me, the reason why they do this, to remove my social media. You knew something was happening. Panodrama rattled a cage because it proved the BBC in state interference, in fake news, in trying to frame me, in telling people what to say about me, in manufacturing news about me. That video's had 2.5 million views in a week. The public are aware and watching. And right now, that luckily, through here, you're still watching. But this will be taken away from me also. YouTube, you can see the pressure putting on. Today in the House of Commons, they admit the truth of what's happened. They don't tell you that anyone was sent to my children's home, that a drug addict, racist extremist was sent to my family's home. They don't tell you that. They say that I went and knocked on a journalist's house. They don't tell you the journalist supports violence with Antifa. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that when I knocked, I didn't threaten him. I just asked him some simple questions. Is it okay? I had a Guardian journalist rang me yesterday. I asked that Guardian journalist, and they've contacted my lawyers today. I asked the Guardian journalist, as you, Mike Stutchbury, has told us you accompanied this crackhead to my children's home, is it okay if I come and knock at your door? Is that okay? And do you know what? If Mike Stutchbury had children, I wouldn't have knocked at his door. But he doesn't, because he's a useless 40-year-old chubby mess who was in us, even when he was in his home country, was inciting violence and being involved in political violence. All the things they throw at us. I'm the thug. I'm not the man inciting violence on my social media. I'm not the man saying it's okay to beat people up. That's you, Mike Stutchbury. You, the so-called journalist. I'm not the man who you doxed. I've got evidence you doxed an address that had my children in. Fully aware that people want to murder me. Fully aware. And yet none of the politicians want to mention that today. They all want to use this as a battering ram to have me removed from social media, to have me removed from YouTube. Cowards, a lot of you. What does this do? It means on the 22nd of March, I stand trial again. Last time, I was offered a deal. If I pled guilty, they would promise me I wouldn't go back to jail. There is nothing that would make me accept any guilt in this latest political witch hunt of a trial. So on the 22nd of March, I will go back to the Royal Court of Justice with my head held high. Because nothing I did, and then funny enough, you dropped that other charge, I believe. I haven't read through it all properly. But the charge that said I prejudiced the trial. Do you know why they had to drop that? Because the own judge, the Judge Marston that put me in prison, and I'll quote him, after watching the entirety of Mr. Robertson's video, there is nothing he said that even if the jury witnessed it, could prejudice the trial. Do you know the proof, which no journalist will print this, the proof that this is state persecution is that 3 other journalists breached the same Section 4 reporting restriction that weekend. One of them, a Lizzie Dearden. And I have the evidence of that as well. Because I have the court transcripts where the judge was made aware that other journalists had breached the reporting restriction. So, Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox or whatever your name is, you've just exposed your own government to the world as participating in state-sponsored persecution of your own citizens. That's all this has done. Does this shut me up? No, it don't. If you remove me from YouTube, I'm about to do a video specifically aimed at you, my plea to YouTube. It will detail and show video evidence of the persecution that my children's home has faced, along with the people and the evidence of the people instigating it. The same people who are being treated right now as victims by the mainstream media and the political establishment. It will prove to you that there is a campaign to prevent the public being aware of what's happening in this country. I'm simply a voice that was listened to by millions, and that is what they want to stop. They're fully aware that I've exposed their mainstream media, I've exposed their agenda. I'm going to expose every paedophile horn in this country. And it's that, and that is a reason why they want to silence me. And again, as these stories breaking news, Tommy Robinson to face 2 years in prison. I'd rather go to prison again. But the reality is, to ask yourself this, as a British citizen, I spent 2.5 months on solitary confinement for speaking into my iPhone outside a court case and giving publicly held information. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Do you know, if you put the same efforts, I'll end up doing more time than Shamina Begum. She'll end up back here, I'll end up in prison. 500 ISIS fighters have returned to this country and face zero prosecution. 500 ISIS fighters have returned after murdering, raping and pillaging and face zero prosecution. I'm about to be tried for the 3rd time on the same bloody offence of talking into a phone. So there's a website been set up, but I can't even remember what it's called. I haven't even... Ash! You can go to tr.news. Do you know what else they done last time? Which is what they'll do again. They know that every legal battle you have. Do you know what I found out? Which I'm about to pursue. On Sunday, a Muslim lawyer who represents most jihadi terrorists handed private documentation with my address to a far left extremist activist, so he could come to my children's home. That's what the lawyer done. That breaks every bloody law in his own guidelines that he has to abide by. But will the media who travelled with this extremist report that? Is it okay? I asked a Guardian journalist, how is it okay for you to travel with far left activists to a property that my wife and children are residing in? How is that okay? They said, well, that you were getting delivered a legal letter. I said, okay, sound. So I'm going to sue you as a journalist. And when it gets to me giving you that legal letter, my lawyer's going to give that legal letter to, I don't know, the Football Lads Alliance or the EDL. Is it okay if they then deliver that letter to the house that has your children in it? Is that okay? No, it's not. Now, for the past, I feel like I have got it coming from everywhere at the minute. And I don't think I'm far off. From the closing down of my social media to provocations where my children are, to finding police in fucking with intel vans sitting listening outside of the house that I'm in. They are fitting me up. They are setting me up for a big fall. Whether that be, well, it was Panorama, and now I believe it's going to be in this upcoming court case on the 22nd of March. Now, I can't even remember. There's a website been set up. If you go to www.trnews, soon my ability to talk with any of you will be gone. I'm building a group where I want to be able to contact you. It's free of charge. You sign up at tr.news. So that when I'm deleted off here, so when I'm deleted off everywhere, I can still make a video and I can ping it straight to you. You can then use the social media platforms that they're trying to take away and share that video. The truth can still be shared, even if it's just in WhatsApp groups amongst your friends. The level of censorship that this country is going to. We have 15,000 people watching this live. Tom Watson. That is what you fear. The fact that 500,000 people will watch this in the next 2 days. You want to take away their opportunity to hear the reality of what's happening, to hear my side. They don't want me to have an opportunity or a platform to even counter their lies and their arguments, their lies and their smears. They don't want to be able to... Anyway, if you haven't been on already, I know I've been having a few problems. Live stream being choked. A large part of the establishment are probably paedophiles. Ash? Look, to any of you who haven't already signed up, it's tr.news. Ash, what's the website? I'm brain dead, man. Yeah. What's the website that made you set up? Support Free Tommy? I can't. You got me thinking, man. Yeah. I ain't got a clue. I'm tired. Freedom for Tommy. Yeah, freedomfortommy.com. There's also anyone who wants to support the latest campaign. It's freedomfortommy.com, which a good friend has set up today. And I'm sure I won't be alone when I go to court on the 22nd of March. So a prior thank you to every single one of you. Thank you to anyone who showed me support, anyone who's going to show me support, anyone who even shares this video. And the message to the establishment: it's death, prison, or glory. Good night.